When Pat turned 65, she thought retirement would finally mean freedom. No more deadlines. No more rushing to catch the early train or stressing over reports that never seemed to end. She imagined slow mornings with sunlight spilling across her kitchen table, a warm mug of tea in her hands, and the peace of knowing she could finally live life on her own terms. But somewhere between those quiet mornings and the long afternoons that followed, Pat began to feel something unexpected: pressure. The kind that whispers, you should be doing more, keeping things perfect, staying busy. So she cleaned. She cleaned like she was still running a household full of kids. Like the spotless counters somehow proved she was still in control. Like every shiny surface made her life feel a little less lonely. And yet, deep down, she knew she wasn't cleaning just to clean. She was filling time. If you've ever stood in your kitchen and wiped the same counter 3 times, even though it was already clean, you know exactly what Pat was feeling. What she didn't know then, and what you're about to discover, is that some of the cleaning tasks seniors spend hours on every week don't actually matter anymore. In fact, they may be stealing time, energy, and joy that could be spent doing things that really matter. So before you grab that dust cloth again, take a deep breath and stay with Pat till the end of this video. Because what she learned next completely changed the way she looked at her home, her time, and her life. And if you're new here, welcome to Reset for Seniors, the channel that helps you simplify, thrive, and rediscover joy in every season of life. Don't forget to tap subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss a story that might just change your week. It started one Tuesday morning. The kind where the city hums outside, but inside her apartment it was just the steady tick of the wall clock and the faint smell of lemon polish. Pat looked around her living room. Everything was in its place. The floor gleamed, the cushions sat perfectly fluffed. But she couldn't shake the feeling that she'd spent her entire morning doing nothing that really mattered. She sat down with her tea and whispered, almost out loud, "Why do I feel tired when I haven't even done much?" It wasn't that she disliked cleaning. She'd always found a kind of calm in it. But she started to wonder if all these routines she kept repeating were actually keeping her from living. That afternoon, her neighbor, Doris, dropped by. Doris was 72 and had the easy laugh of someone who'd learned not to take life too seriously. She looked around Pat's spotless apartment and said with a grin, "Looks like you're still running a museum here, Pat." Pat laughed, but something about those words stuck. That night, she made herself a promise to take a closer look at the things she was doing out of habit, not purpose. And that's when she realized there were 5 cleaning tasks she'd been wasting precious hours on. 5 things that didn't make her home any cleaner, her life any better, or her heart any happier. If you're someone who still believes a good woman keeps a spotless home, you might want to lean in, because these are the very habits stealing time from your golden years. The first useless task was polishing furniture every single day. Pat had grown up watching her mother wipe down their old oak dining table until it shone like glass. So when she moved into her apartment, she did the same. A daily routine that took 20 minutes and a sore shoulder to finish. But one day, she stopped. Instead of polishing, she dusted lightly once a week. Nothing more. And to her surprise, nothing changed. The furniture didn't collapse, the shine didn't vanish, and her home looked just as beautiful. She realized something powerful. Sometimes we keep doing things simply because they make us feel safe, not because they're actually useful. If that hit home, you're not alone. Many seniors cling to routines because they bring a sense of order, but not all routines bring peace. Pat wrote in her journal that night, "The table doesn't need to shine to reflect my worth." The second useless cleaning task? Washing already clean laundry. Yes, you read that right. Pat would rewash towels that had hung in the bathroom for only a day. She'd rewash clothes that might smell a bit stale, even when they didn't. But when her water bill went up and she found herself exhausted after yet another load, she started to question why she was doing it. That's when she realized the truth. She wasn't washing for cleanliness. She was washing for comfort, for the feeling that she was doing something. So she tried something new. She waited. She let the towels air out. She wore the same cozy sweater twice before washing. Nothing terrible happened. In fact, she felt lighter, and she noticed her apartment smelled fresher because she wasn't constantly running damp loads through the machine. Sometimes, freedom isn't about doing more. It's about letting go of the things that no longer serve you. And if you're watching this thinking, maybe I'm guilty of that too, don't worry, you're in good company. The third task Pat gave up was scrubbing floors on her hands and knees. For years, she'd believed that was the only way to get them truly clean. She'd fill a bucket, soak a rag, and spend an hour bent over, her knees aching and her back sore. One morning, Doris caught her doing it and nearly gasped. "Pat, for heaven's sake, get a mop with a handle. You're not auditioning for a cleaning commercial." That laugh between them broke something open. A moment of realization that cleaning doesn't have to hurt to count. Pat bought a lightweight mop the next day. She spent 5 minutes cleaning instead of 60, and her back thanked her. What she learned: you can honor the home you've built without punishing the body that carried you here. If you've been doing chores the hard way just because that's how it's always been done, this is your permission to stop. You've earned the right to work smarter, not harder. The fourth useless task: ironing everything. When Pat retired, she had more time, and that meant she found herself ironing even the simplest clothes. Pajamas, dish towels, pillowcases. It gave her something to do, something that felt productive. But one afternoon, she realized she was spending almost 2 hours each week just ironing. She stopped. She hung her clothes neatly right after drying, and the wrinkles were barely noticeable. The world didn't end. No one cared. She laughed and said to herself, "I spent 40 years working so I could finally enjoy life, and here I am ironing towels." If you've ever caught yourself doing the same, here's your wake-up call. Perfection steals more time than mess ever will. Finally, the fifth task: organizing things that don't need organizing. Pat loved containers. Baskets, boxes, dividers. Her apartment looked like a catalog. But one day, she realized she was organizing the same drawer for the third time that week. That's when it hit her. It wasn't about organization. It was about control. Sometimes, when life feels unpredictable, we turn to what we can manage, even if it's just a drawer full of batteries. So she stopped rearranging and started releasing. She donated half the things she didn't use. She let her drawers stay imperfect. The calm that followed was something no amount of organizing could buy. By the end of that week, Pat felt something she hadn't felt in a long time: space. Space in her home, her mind, her heart. And that's when she realized, cleaning my home shouldn't feel like reliving my working years. It should feel like honoring my rest. That simple shift changed everything. She began spending mornings reading by the window instead of scrubbing. She took walks with Doris. She baked cookies for the neighbors. Her home didn't get dirtier, it got happier. If you've ever felt trapped by routines that don't serve you anymore, maybe it's time for your own reset. Stop wasting time on tasks that don't add joy. Start using that time for things that feed your soul. A call to a friend, a quiet prayer, a good book, or just watching the sunset. Because at the end of the day, the dust will settle again. But the moments you lose won't come back. And if this story spoke to you, don't leave yet. The next video on Reset for Seniors will show you how Pat learned to let go of guilt and reclaim her peace. So hit like, share this with someone who needs a gentle reminder to rest, and click subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. You've worked hard all your life. Now it's time to live gently. This is Reset for Seniors, helping you simplify, breathe, and begin again. The days that followed were quieter, not because Pat was doing less, but because her space began to breathe again. For the first time in years, she noticed the sunlight moving across her walls during the day. It was as if her apartment had been waiting for her to slow down long enough to see it. She realized something else too. She had been so busy cleaning, she hadn't really lived in her own home. Now, when she looked around, she didn't see chores waiting. She saw memories. The chair where she used to read bedtime stories to her daughter. The chipped mug from her first trip to the coast. The quilt her mother sewed long ago. Every piece of her home had a story, and she began to understand. Homes aren't meant to look perfect, they're meant to feel loved. She smiled to herself one morning and said, "I think my home finally looks like me again. A little messy, but full of life." That's when it hit her. She hadn't lost control of her home. She had simply reclaimed her time. One Saturday, she invited Doris over for coffee. Doris stepped inside, glanced around, and said, "Pat, did you change something? It feels different here." Pat laughed. "Yeah, I finally stopped trying to win the cleanest apartment award." Doris smiled knowingly. "Feels lighter, doesn't it?" It did. The air felt different, more peaceful, less pressured. They sat down and talked about how so many women of their generation had grown up believing that their worth was tied to how spotless their homes were. But that wasn't the truth anymore. Because when you spend your whole life cleaning up after everyone, sometimes you forget to care for yourself. That afternoon, Pat looked out the window at the busy street below and thought about all the years she'd spent chasing perfection. Spotless floors, folded linens, shiny counters. She whispered to herself, "All that time, I thought I was keeping up appearances. But maybe I was just avoiding stillness." And that stillness, that quiet, was what she needed most. That night, she made a list. Not a to-do list, but a to-live list. It said, call Ellen, her daughter, just to talk. Take a walk by the river instead of cleaning the porch. Let the dishes wait until morning. Watch the sunset without folding laundry. Breathe. She taped it to her fridge, right where her old cleaning checklist used to hang. That list became her new routine, not about keeping order, but about keeping joy. Over the next few weeks, Pat noticed something unexpected. She started sleeping better. Her back pain eased. Her days felt longer, but in a good way. She even started painting again, a hobby she hadn't touched since her 40s. And one day, when her daughter visited, she looked around and said, "Mom, your place feels different. Happier." Pat smiled, "Because I finally stopped cleaning the same things that were already clean." They both laughed, but behind that laughter was truth. Too many seniors spend their precious days keeping things perfect, not realizing that perfect can quietly steal their peace. There was another shift too, a deeper one. By letting go of useless cleaning tasks, Pat found herself letting go of guilt. She stopped feeling like she had to earn her rest. And she started saying yes more, yes to lunch invitations, yes to afternoon naps, yes to moments that made her feel alive. For years, she had treated her home like a checklist. Now it felt like a friend. If you're listening to this and nodding along, maybe it's time to ask yourself, am I cleaning to feel in control, or am I cleaning because I truly need to? There's nothing wrong with loving a tidy home. But when tidying becomes a way of hiding, from boredom, loneliness, or the fear of slowing down, it's no longer helping you. You deserve more than spotless floors. You deserve peace. Pat's story isn't really about cleaning. It's about reclaiming your time, the most precious thing you have. And the truth is, once that time is gone, you can't sweep it back. A few weeks later, Pat joined a local art class for retirees. On her first day, the instructor asked everyone to paint something that represented their current season of life. Pat painted her living room, sunlight spilling across a coffee table, a few books scattered, a teacup half full. Imperfect, beautiful, real. When the instructor asked her what it meant, she said, "This is what peace looks like when you stop polishing it." That painting now hangs by her front door. Every time she leaves her apartment, she smiles at it. A gentle reminder that a full life isn't always a spotless one. One rainy afternoon, she got a call from her friend Alice. Alice was feeling overwhelmed. Her grown kids were always busy, and she spent most of her days cleaning and organizing to fill the silence. Pat listened quietly, then said, "Alice, maybe it's not the house that needs cleaning. Maybe it's the guilt." There was a pause on the other end of the line, followed by a sigh. "You're probably right," Alice said softly. That night, Pat realized something beautiful. By letting go, she'd made space not just for herself, but for others too. When we stop chasing perfection, we start inviting connection. If you've ever found yourself feeling restless, trying to fill your days with tasks that don't bring you joy, this is your moment to pause. Because no one at the end of their life says, "I wish I'd cleaned more." But many say, "I wish I'd lived more." So here's your gentle reminder. The dishes can wait. The floors can stay a little dusty. The world won't fall apart. But your chance to smile at someone, to feel the breeze, to take that walk, that moment won't wait forever. Now, imagine what your days could look like if you reclaimed just 1 hour of cleaning each day. That's 7 hours a week, 30 hours a month, 365 hours a year. That's more than 15 full days of your life, time you could spend living. Doesn't that sound worth it? So start today. Pick one useless cleaning habit and let it go. Not tomorrow, not someday. Today. Because every time you let go of what no longer matters, you make room for what truly does. If Pat's story inspired you, don't keep it to yourself. Share this video with a friend who might be caught in the same loop. The one who's always too busy cleaning to rest. You never know. Your share could be the reminder that helps someone finally breathe again. And if you're new to this community, welcome to Reset for Seniors, where we believe that aging isn't about slowing down, it's about slowing right. Tap that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because next week, we're exploring the hidden cost of trying to stay perfect after retirement. You don't want to miss it. Remember, your home doesn't need to shine. You do. Reset for Seniors, helping you simplify, breathe, and begin again.